It's a little extra lunch money, Minister. Much ado about nothing, because the 2 million sound nice, and then you realize it's phased in over 3 years, so it's an extra $100,000 a year on the threshold. So,
let's call it $2,000 a month. If you faithfully put away that $2,000 because it's something that you were not getting before, at the end of 3 years, you'll have a tidy sum that you could put down on a car, a little Probox that you have to drive to go to work, and you don't have to stand up in the sun or think about rain to get a vehicle. See,
like
get
a 20-year-old Probox.
Nice little car.
I really wasn't going to do a video on this. I was going to make it pass and say, listen, so many people are going to be talking about this. But the reason why I do it is because I did a video about a couple of weeks or so ago about Fayval Williams and her party either sneakily trying to introduce a new bill, an amendment to a bill, or they just completely were clueless in what they were doing. But I'll get into that later. But this thing about 2,000 Jamaican dollars, a month towards a car, and she went on to say, okay, over a 3-year period, etc. And I sat there and I thought, this is the finance minister. I said it before and I'll say it again, and I said it in my previous video as well. If this finance minister lasts until the end of the next election, that tells me that the current government is desperate to have a finance minister, because it looks as if they have no one else that they could use to replace her, after obviously Nigel Clark has left. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to touch this topic at all because I'm thinking it's a low-hanging fruit. It's too easy. She's making it too easy. These are own goal scoring. When you play against a team and there's an own goal, see, just scoring all these own goals, and it's too easy. I need something more challenging to get my teeth into, if you can understand. Now, having said that, a lot of people have already, done the memes, have already done whatever they have to do to her in terms of, the social media situation. And I was just going to chill out and just say, you know what, I'm not going to get involved. There's too many people I beat her already. One more person, no make no sense. But the more I thought about it, I said, no, this I have to give my opinion on this. But there's something else that a lot of people hasn't gone into. And for that reason, I'm going to jump over to, this section here. So as you know, we like to jump into some figures. So here we are over here. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, as tempting as it may, but I'll do my best. Now, I'll put in 1.9 million as opposed to the price of a Probox in Jamaica. A lot of research I have to do online because, you have to consider the fact that I don't live in Jamaica, I live in London. Now, this is the more of the upper end, some goes up to, 2.2 million, 2.5 million and so on, probably even more. But the websites that I've looked at, the car dealers I've seen online in Jamaica that's selling Proboxes, that's the type of price. It ranges from 1.1 million for a Probox, which is about 2014, up to 2.2 million for Probox. That's probably like a 22, 23, 24, that type of year. It might even be higher. So don't quote me too much on that. But having said that, looking at Fayval Williams' situation, let me just correct some figures here before we continue. Now, Fayval says you can put down, for 3 years, you can put down a deposit of £2,000 towards a Probox, which obviously will be 72,000 that you use as a deposit. Now, an average Probox within the median range, if you like, which is 1.9 million, means you're going to borrow 1.8 million, which is 3.79%, which is very dismal in terms of a deposit. Most dealers, or I would have thought, would want you to put down, more of a 10, 20, probably even 30% deposit. Now, obviously, the loan, as I said, is going to be 1.8 million, which is that in US dollars. Now, I've decided to put capital and interest, even though I don't have an amortization system, because that makes it more complex, because when you're taking out loans over a period of time, you have to amortize the loan, and it can be complex. So what I've done is I've said, okay, this money that you're borrowing, how much is it would be in terms of the capital that you're paying back each month, and this would be how much interest you're paying on that capital each month. And if you're looking at interest rate of 5%, then that's what you're going to get, and that's the equivalent in US dollars. Now obviously I can change this figure whenever I want, because this is at the time of recording this, the interest rate I think was 157.74 or something like that. Right, so with that said, the total amount would be this that you'll be paying. Now this is not feasible, because I did a quick research online, and it says in Jamaica the average range for interest rate is between 8 and 12%, which is the annual interest rate, which means I'll have to change this figure from 5 to 8. Let's say we'll go with the minimum of 8. Anything you see in yellow I can change. Okay, so if I change it to 8, you see everything jumps up more because the interest rate is higher. So this is jumped to $29 US dollars, as you see, is jumped up. So let's use that one. Of course, if I put in 12%, it will be crazy. Look at that. It will jump up even more to 7,200, but we're not going to go with that. We're going to go with the 8 one, the minimum one. That brings it back down to half of that, which is 4,500. Now here's the thing. I then said to myself, I wanted to work out. So now that we know this, I wanted to work out how long would it take to pay off a vehicle at 1.9% over that time period. Now, if I use 19 point something, because most cars you want to pay them off within say 5 years, isn't it? So if you want to pay off a car within 5 years, if we go with Fayval's 3 years in terms of you putting money aside, yeah, you would have to come up with 19,700 Jamaican dollars per month, which will give you this total amount to deposit, 709,000 to 709,000, in order for you to, over this 3 year period, in order for you to put down to be able to pay off this loan within 5 years. So this loan is the same as this loan up where is it? It would be the same as this amount up here, but obviously it will be a different loan amount because of what this is. So what I've done is I've said, okay, this is based on this. So obviously this and this is not tallying, and the reason why is I wanted to keep this independent of this. This is working out these figures while this is just working out what's in this box. So if you were paying 19,700 Jamaican dollars over 3 years and getting this as your deposit, then your loan will be that, and then you pay it off in 5 years, which is, you don't want to really pay for a car more than that, because after that the car is old and battered anyway. But just to illustrate, if I go and I say, listen, let's go back with the 2,000 that she was saying, Fayval was saying, yeah, look at that, 2,072 deposit. Now this figure tallies with that, as you can see. This is why I kept it independent, so that when I play with this figure, it doesn't mess about with the figure above. So if you're putting away £2,000 a month for 3 years and you're getting your £72,000 deposit ready, when you put that against this of 1.9 million, yes, you're gonna be borrowing that, but it would take you 76 years and 2 months to pay that off, brother. That's crazy. But obviously, if you're gonna use the same year, you'd have to either find 19,700. Yeah, 700, so you can pay it off within 5 years. And now let's go back and say the vehicle is let's go back to 2,000 quickly, because I'm not going to spend too long on this. This is I just wanted to play with this to show people. If we go with the cheaper Probox, the cheapest one I've seen online is 1.1 million. Yeah, that's the cheapest one I saw, 1.1 million. Okay, so if you're still putting down this amount, and just bear in mind, as I said before, anything in yellow I can change. Okay, so when I look at it, I'm thinking, okay, just over $1 million. Obviously the US dollars reflect that amount. Now I'm thinking, It would take 42 years, because if you notice this changes, it would take 42 years and 8 months to pay, because it's a significantly less. Again, if I change this back to 1.9 million, yeah, you see this jumped up to 76 years, 2 months to pay off, unless you increase the amount here. So if I go with this and I say I take out the cheaper one, which is 1.1 million, what am I doing? Yeah, 1.1 million. Then we'll have a situation like this where you pay less money. But this 42 years is obviously not feasible unless you're putting down, as I say, a substantial deposit, or you're putting down more money. Or imagine if the interest rate was 12%, because according to my research, between 8 and 12%. That would be a completely different figure. Obviously, it doesn't affect down here because this figure is based on a term with 0% interest rate. Now, if you also calculate the interest rate into this would take a far longer time to pay off. But at the end of the day, and you pay more money a month as well. But you need to amortize that, and I can't do it like this. It's a complex. To amortize something is a more complicated calculations, and it's only banks and lenders have the software that can do that. I could actually write it and code it into Excel to do it, but just for a quick illustration, it's no point. So that's all I wanted to show you in regards to this. So if we go back to the 8%, which is typical, this is crazy. The only way I can see that if you want to bring this down, you'd have to, you'd have to either, even if you can't, you'd have to increase the amount of time you're going to save. So let's say you put 10 years instead. Yeah, that will still bring it to 35 years. So my goodness, you'd have to save for 30 years and still not going to do it. So 50 years then. Damn. So no, that's too much. Let's go back for 40 years. You'd have to see it for 40 years. You understand me? Which is 480 months with your 2,000. So in other words, you'd have to, each month you're putting away £2,000 for 40 years in order to come up with 960,000 deposit towards the Probox loan of this. So now, when you do that, the loan will be 140. So you reduce the loan in order for you to pay it off in 5 years, which is not feasible. So, boy, I don't know. And Fayval Williams is the finance minister, you know. So, brother, this is crazy. And again, same thing over here. If I change this to 40 years, yeah, everything will reflect accordingly in terms of how much you have to borrow and so on and so forth. So, again, if I change this to 40 years over here, boom, that's figure saying. This is why I separate these three into 3 different calculations so we can mess about with it. Boy, I mean, I understand. So you'd have to put on, you'd have to save that money over 40 years in order for you to pay it off in 5 years. Or if you're gonna save for 3 years, yeah, you'd have to come up with, it'll go jump to 49 thingy, and that's on the cheap one of 1.1 million, mind you. So then you'd have to go put on, what was it, 19,700. You'd have to put that amount of money down, but then that will reduce it down to 1 year. But obviously it's not going to be 1 year. So let's say 15,000 then, or somewhere thereabouts. 15,000. Yep. Then yeah, you want to pay for your car within 3 to 5 years. So that's reasonable. But that amount is, $95 US a month. How many people can afford to pay $95 US a month for a vehicle? I don't know. Only Jamaicans can say whether that's something affordable or not. But from what I'm seeing online, it don't seem to be a practical solution. So let's just change everything back to Fayval's how she wants it. And as I say, you're not gonna really get a Probox for 1.9. You're gonna probably get a reasonable one for about 1.9 million. So that's more likely the figure you're looking at, which means it is your quick, it bumps up to 7 years even with this. Because remember, this is pulling from this figure. Even though they're separate, the only figure I'm pulling is this. So this is crazy. Yeah, you'd have to, if you put in down 15,000, you would have to increase this, because who wants to pay for a vehicle for seven years? After 7 years, the car old, better. that is going to look dated, it's going to have a whole heap of problems, and the cost of fixing it and maintaining it. So that don't look feasible. So Fayval Williams, I don't know what kind of figures they gave you, why you came up with this $2,000 dollars a month towards a Probox to keep you out of the rain and sun hot, but that just sounds crazy to me. That is really crazy. Now, the other thing I want to get into is where Dion asked, Fayval about the taxation system and so on and so forth. And I did a video about how they tried to pass a tax. Well, they didn't try to, they did. They passed a bill. And I'm going to hit that in a minute. But let's hear what Fayval have to say in regards to these taxes and how they're helping so-called, everyday man in the street and woman in the street situation.
What's your philosophy, though, in relation to income tax generally?
So the philosophy of the government, remember when we started, our policy is to shift away from direct taxation to indirect taxation.
Oh, really?
So instead of taking taxes out of your pay, taxes would be spread out on the things you buy. So this continues that move in that direction, very consistent with that very first threshold move that we made.
So quoting Damian King again, and I hope I don't wind up in one of his Twitter posts tomorrow, but quoting Damian King again in 2023, he said income tax is an unfair tax paid by those who have formal sector jobs but not by those who don't. So part of the motivation behind their proposal, as I said 2 years ago for a 2.2 million threshold, was to eliminate the unfairness in what is fundamentally an unfair tax. You agree with
That's
him?
why we're moving. That's why we'd love to move all the way to direct taxation.
So you agree with him it's an unfair tax, fundamentally?
I don't know that I go that far, but I know that our policy is to reduce taxation on incomes.
Oh boy, I'm going to stop it right there, so. I need to stop it right there because I need to say something. Now, you're saying all this stuff about taxes, Fayval, but what you're not telling the people is that just over 2 weeks ago, you and your party passed a new bill, an amendment bill, which gives tax exemption to bankers. Do you remember that? I did a video on that. The first part video get a little bit of traction. The second one, which is the more devastating part of the video, not many people watched. I think people should go back and watch the second one. I know I can be a bit annoying in the video sometimes. Don't worry, in future videos I'll shut up and don't talk as much whilst other people are talking. But sometimes I just get a little bit passionate about these things. But yes, Fayval, you passed a tax bill that exempt bankers from paying taxes, and you either pretended you didn't understand the question that Mark Golding was asking you, and Dayton Campbell, I think, or you obviously didn't understand the question at all, or you were trying to sneak through a new amendment bill, hoping that you wouldn't be probed too much on it. But unfortunately for you, you were probed on it, and it took Marlene Malahoo, I forget her surname, Fort. My apologies, Marlene Malahoo Fort, to sort of try and bail you out and explain it in a succinct way and a clear way. But at the end of the day, that tax that you gave to bankers, so they don't pay no tax, that's a complete tax exemption. Why don't you come and tell the public about that? It's unfortunate that Dean didn't bring that up. And all this stuff about Proboxes and putting away $2,000 a month, which is ridiculous. I would have hoped that Dean would have actually said, oh, by the way, what about that bill, the amendment bill you passed, just over a couple of weeks ago, where you were actually giving tax exemptions to bankers. How do you think the Jamaican public, especially the taxpayers, would feel about that? I would have loved to hear a response on that, but it is what it is. But yeah, this just goes to show you that when it comes to certain people at a certain level, they're willing to give them tax breaks and tax exemptions and give them all kind of fringe benefits. But when it comes to the ordinary working poor, and I always call working class people the working poor, because we are the working poor. We bust our ass and we work long hours for little or no little pay. I wouldn't say no pay, but for little pay. And our income is not in line with inflation. It's not in line with inflation. They never increase your tax in line with inflation. It's always lagging behind, which means you're struggling. But when they take their pay, the Prime Minister and the rest of you guys increased your pay to up to 200%. How about that? So that's way above inflation. That's all I've got to say about that. I don't want to drag this video out too much, but I had to give my 2 cents, even though a lot of people have already, done video on it. But they were doing video just to mock Fayval and, for the drama and stuff. But as you can see from this video, I take a completely different angle, because for me, it's not a joke. This isn't about getting views and likes and kiki and getting jokes. This is serious. These people are playing Russian roulette with people's lives. They're playing with people's lives when it comes to their income, because it is what it is. People's livelihoods are being jeopardized because these people are so out of touch with reality. They're in their own little bubble and they're far removed from any reality of what's going on day to day. They don't even know how much chicken back costs, a tin of bully beef costs. They don't know the price or nothing. It's crazy. But I digress. I'll finish here.